who served in Iraq in 2003. He is now chairman of VoteVets.org. Jon, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, ma'am.
Now, officials at Fort Lewis are no doubt feeling overwhelmed. I can't even imagine what they're going through. But I do want to know your opinion. Was stopping individual memorial services the best way to have handled this?
Well, obviously at VoteVets.org we fight for the troops, and we remember all of them when they fall for this country. But I think it's a sign that the Army's completely overextended. One of the additional brigades that President Bush sent to Iraq, and obviously now all 20 are in place, was one of these brigades from the 2nd Infantry Division at Fort Lewis. That's why their casualties are so high. This month, in May, it was the highest month of casualties in Iraq and deaths since November of 2004. And it's unfortunate because we need to remember all of our soldiers that die. I understand that they're overextended at Fort Lewis like the rest of the Army, but we need to remember our troops. It's the worst thing that a soldier could ever think of, is that they'll be forgotten once they fall, and we owe it to them to remember them individually every time.
Need to do it every day. Yesterday came word that the White House sees the U.S. having a long-term military presence in Iraq, similar to the one that it's had in Korea for so many years. Do you think that's a valid comparison?
I couldn't think of a worse comparison. When we went to Korea, we went in under a UN mandate. It was a conventional, high-intensity conflict, force-on-force conflict. We used diplomatic solutions to get a stabilization on the peninsula, and we've had a presence ever since, but the presence has been in peace. Our soldiers aren't getting shot at in Korea every day. They're not coming home in body bags. And for the troops on the ground, I mean, this is a second blatant example of this administration, with their words, undermining our troops in the field and emboldening the enemy. When they passed their torture bill last year in Congress, our soldiers are on the ground every day trying to win the hearts and minds of the Iraqi people. And they validated everything that happened at Abu Ghraib, which undermines the popularity of the troops in Iraq. And then when you go and you say we're going to be there indefinitely, that's like a recruiting tool for al-Qaeda. That's a recruiting tool. Our soldiers are in the villages every day. They're trying to say that we're here temporarily to help your government get established. And here come the people in Washington, D.C. who've never had the courage to fight for this country. They stand up and they say, well, we're going to be there for 50 years or indefinitely. Only 1% of the Iraqi population supports an indefinite American presence in Iraq. So what the president did today and Tony Snow is they gave al-Qaeda a recruiting poster, and it's very unfortunate for our men and women in combat.
I do want to follow up on one more thing about that Korea comparison. No one won in the Korean War. It was a ceasefire. Do you expect the change in the language about winning in Iraq?
Well, I think that's funny when they went after Senator Reid. Winning or losing, troop levels more, troop levels less. This is about diplomacy. This is about finding the politicians or the people in charge who control the armies or the militias or the guns. And we need some form of political settlement, both at the regional level and internally in Iraq. I have no idea what victory looks like because the commander-in-chief hasn't outlaid that. So we'll see. But I'm not quite sure if we'll ever see victory or defeat, or if we'll just see something in the middle.
I want to get your impression about those two soldiers who told the media that their fellow soldiers do not think that progress is being made, and they want to know, when are they actually going to get out of there, get to go home? How many more soldiers can we expect who are not willing to speak out publicly, and why don't they speak out publicly, sir?
Well, I think what's interesting is that soldiers are speaking out. When Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld was in Kuwait and the specialist spoke up, it's why we had up armored Humvees in Iraq. And last year, Zogby did a poll in Iraq of combat troops that were there. 70% thought we need to get out within a year. And now you have Joe Lieberman, who spent his Vietnam War years in law school and claims to be some kind of arbiter of patriotism, going to Iraq wearing his fake Oakley sunglasses. And it's hard for me to know that he actually gets to see the troops, because those soldiers, they wanted to talk to Joe Lieberman, and they wanted to tell him the truth. They wanted to tell him what they saw, which was that they're driving around, they're getting shot, and they want to know when they're going home. And for me, you know, when I came home, I was lucky to get to meet, you know, someone like Senator John Kerry, who took the time out to talk to me, and he really let me know that my opinion mattered to him. Obviously, he had questioned the war in Vietnam when he came home, but for these soldiers to have to go and talk to a guy like Senator Lieberman, who's not going to listen to their concerns because he's, I don't quite know why he thinks what he thinks, but it's not based on fact and it's not based on reality, but it's bad for their morale. And it's hard for them to do that, like you said, because they're inside the military, and you know, it's a culture of discipline, and it's obviously very difficult, but I really wish they would have been able to talk to a senator that would have cared what they thought.
Jon Soltz, the chairman of VoteVets.